On today's lessons for full spectrum humans, level 2, this is all about harmonics, music, the chakras, and the planets of the solar system. So the first thing I'd like to begin with is, what is harmonics? Harmonics is the set of rules that governs the patterns of waves as energy flows in waves throughout the universe. So this is a wave that I have just drawn. And this has everything to do with what I spoke about in one of the level 1 lessons about wavelength and frequency, and also the proportions that I often use in my paintings that I'm going to get to right over here. So one thing that might help you in this envisioning is to imagine that each one of these half circles here, that half circle right there, to imagine that this full wave is actually a circle like this that has been cut in half, and this bottom part over here has been swung around like this. And I will reiterate and or refresh your memory from previous lessons about the proportions that I always use in my paintings, where here we have the red circle. The red circle is always the largest circle and the longest wavelength, and that would be the largest unit of measurement. And orange is always going to be 1/2 of the size of red. Yellow is 1/3 the size of red. Green, 1/4. Light blue is 1/5, and dark blue is 1/6, and little old violet is always going to be 1/7 the size of the red circle. And so the way it works out in a graph over here is, here is the red wavelengths, and then here's an orange wave. Just fixing that. So you see what I just drew? It is literally half the size of the red waves. Here comes yellow at 1/3. Here comes green at 1/4. And I'm already seeing this is going to be a challenge when I start to get to the much smaller wavelengths. I should have started this drawing a little bit larger, but that's okay. Here comes blue at 5 wavelengths. I'm going to draw on the blue at 6 wavelengths really fast, same color blue. And here comes violet, 7 wavelengths. So although this has become a bit of a jumbled drawing over here because so many lines are overlapping, you can begin to get an idea of what harmonics is all about, because harmonics refers to these nodes, these crossing points, these places where one color of waves crosses the black line, and another color of waves also crosses the black line in that place. And that spot right there is a very crucial crossing point. Because let's remember here, what we're talking about is something that is moving, something that is vibrating. These are waves that are moving like this. And Let's talk about interference patterns. An interference pattern is what happens when you have two waves overlapping. If they overlap like this, where their waves are all lined up, then what you end up getting is amplification. The two waves add up to be even taller than original. But if you have two waves that do not line up perfectly, they cancel each other out. These two waves here are perfect mirror images, and so what they would actually result in is canceled out. And this is what we mean by interference patterns. Interference patterns often happen if you look at like droplets on the surface of water. If you drop one droplet right here and one droplet right here, as the concentric circles of their rings begin to expand, those circles, those waves, interact, and they form these fascinating reflection patterns, these interference patterns of light and dark that are based on exactly what I just told you. In some places, I'm just pointing to this area down here, in some places the waves add up and you get an amplification effect where everything is brighter, and in some places the waves cancel each other out and then you get nothing, you get blackness. So you end up with these patterns of light and dark that are the result of interacting waves. And I have spoken about in previous lessons the phenomenon of cymatics. Cymatics is what occurs when we vibrate a medium, like a finely powdered medium, with a form of vibration. So what I just drew was a rough plate. Let's try this again. This represents a plate that can be vibrated either with sound or some other form of vibration. And then let's choose a medium. Dots, like a very fine little powder, tons and tons of little dots here. And basically what happens is when we start this plate vibrating, it shakes all of these little blue dots into an orderly pattern. And cymatics is the study of those patterns, which look like beautiful, symmetrical, complex geometric patterns, and they often appear to be moving or living and shifting as the frequency of the vibration is raised. Remember, a lot of this is review at this point. Well, both cymatics and the interference pattern are relevant to this right here, this non-physical energy grid, because we're beginning to talk about the way that vibration organizes matter in the universe. And this is how we're getting around to the solar system and to your very own chakras. So the vibration of cymatics organizes these tiny particles, because there are some places where the particles can rest or exist comfortably and some places where they are vibrated out of existence. And this is what we're talking about with these, just changing colors here so you can see, with these nodes, these crucial places. These are places where matter can exist because it hasn't been vibrated away from that place. So now I'd like to talk with you about the solar system. I'm just changing colors now again. The solar system, and I chose this image here. I did not create it, but I chose it because it is accurate in terms of the proportion of size of the orbits. You can see, or perhaps you cannot see, and I'll try to enlarge. Over here you have Earth. Over here you have Earth, and over here you have, the surface of the sun. And this might seem rudimentary and perhaps review for many of you, but let me just state that you can see very clearly how the distances between, let's say, the sun and Mercury, Mercury and Venus Earth, and Venus Mars are all relatively small. And then once we get to the distance between Mars and Jupiter, that distance is much greater. The distance between Mars and Saturn also much greater. And then the distance between the next planet is even greater. And we begin to see the same harmonic pattern being played out in the structure of the solar system. So before I go further into that, I also want to talk a little bit more about the chakras on your body. Just doing a little bit of cleanup over here. So the chakras on your body are also dictated or created, or their existence is dictated and created by the same structure, the same pattern of these nested waves. And there are places where the waves come together and places where they fit and mesh together quite beautifully. So in this drawing that I have over here of the non-physical energy centers, and I'll probably bring up another drawing too. But you can see as one example, the lower edge of this blue sphere rests upon the upper edge of this yellow sphere. This has to do with your throat chakra, the level of truth, interacting with your solar plexus chakra, which is the level of the conscious intellect. So think about that. The interaction between communication, your larynx, your arms, your capacity to share through music or gesture, and your conscious mind, which I've described as your human operating system, the mind that is your conscious understanding, your daily wakeful consciousness, that there is an interaction between these two energetic aspects of self, that point right there is analogous to one of these nodes or places where waves nest according to the laws and rules of harmonics. Here is another place where these waves nest together. The bottom level of indigo rests upon the top level of the lighter blue chakra. So again, we have the interaction between insight, the higher consciousness understanding, and communication. And then here's another crucial interpenetration of your energetic anatomy is, if you can see this outer edge of the violet bubble rests in the cleft of these two bubbles of blue energy. And again, that is the harmonic nesting of these faculties, and this violet wavelength frequency structure there is, of course, your crown chakra. So your connection to source, or your connection to the divine, is intimately connected to truth and communication. And I'll give you one more. If I were to extend this circle that creates the bottom, like saddle shape of the green or heart chakra, it would nest perfectly within the cleft of these orange bubbles. And then we begin to see the connection between unconditional love, that primary currency of the universe, and that emotion of unity consciousness, and the orange emotions, the mammalian emotions, which include the heavier and denser mammalian emotions. So I've also given you the premise that once you begin to understand this shape, this universal chakra shape, and you understand its significance, you can apply it microcosmically or macrocosmically. So what I've just done is use your anthropomorphic viewpoint, the viewpoint of one who is the size and shape of a human, in order to explain to you the significance of these nested chakras and the nested harmonics. Basically, that's saying that at each one of these nodes or places where these two frequencies or energy which is moving at a different rate, where they come together and where they interact, that those are special places, and that they are not arbitrarily decided upon. Far from it, that they are mathematically dictated, that these crucial nodes or crossing over points are dictated by a larger overarching pattern, and this pattern is harmonics. Now let's also talk about sound, because again, this is a universal language of vibration, and because of my particular proclivities, I interpret it as color and shape, and the movement of energy I see as a very visual thing. However, there are many in this world who interpret this information and the abstract empirical truth as sound, as the vibration of sound. So I'm just moving things aside a little bit so that we can see a little bit better. I created this chart right here. I'm just moving things aside in order to help myself to understand music and to learn to play the piano. So the piano is an excellent instrument for me because it is laid out as a linear instrument where the music is, it's very simple. The notes are, lower at this end and they get higher as we move to this end, as opposed to the guitar where it's not set up in such a graphic and linear way where it's so easy to understand all of this. And basically, just as in your body, you have 7 colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, and that is the octave of humanity. Octave is your little segment within those colors, that level of the spectrum. That is what we define as human. Well, over here, we have 1 octave. This note right here, the first white key that is to the left of one of these black keys is where we begin. It is a C, and from that C to this C over here, that is 1 octave. And again, my understanding is color-coded and connected to the rainbow. So I created this grid, and I'm just changing colors here. And I made it so that I start off with red, because I always start off with red. So red is C, and we go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. And this is analogous to going up the chakras, where we begin at the spine. I'm just moving this picture so you can see a little bit better. We begin at the spine down here, and so that would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then white light would be the beginning of the next octave. So there's 2 things that I'm teaching here. The first one is that humanity, this segment here that we define as humanity, is just one segment of a much larger overarching spectrum, or a meta experience, and also that this is the advanced course, and I have been teaching that there are 7 chakras, and that's like teaching that there are 7 notes. It's true, but there are also sharps and flats, and this has everything to do with harmonics, or the places on the musical scale where things cross and overlap. So there is also a pattern within the pattern. You have these 8 notes that are the major notes, and then you have minor notes, the sharps and flats inside of it, and that's what these black keys are. Those are the fun keys to work with. They allow you to add all sorts of different tones by making something maybe sound a little bit brighter or a little bit flatter. So basically, I'm telling you that although I have been teaching you that there are 7 chakras on the body, and then we get up to the crown, that would be, white light or unity. First of all, that's not the end of the journey, because then, of course, we move on to the next octave after that. But also that within those chakras, there are sub-chakras. So I remember telling you clearly that I'm giving you the anatomical lesson of like a basic circulatory system, but not telling you about all of the branching capillaries. Well, now we're getting into a more advanced understanding of the energy system of the non-physical body and understanding that there are sharps and flats. There are sub-chakras. If these are waves that are running up and down your body like this, there are also smaller waves that exist within those waves, and that is as much a part of your health and vitality as the major waves. So you have these, when I talk about, the keys on the piano, these longer keys, these are the notes, and then these black keys are the sharps and flats. Those are the minor keys, minor chords. And if you read music and you are interested in looking at this chart more closely, I'll just show you how this works. That basically, like here we are working with the C, and I have color-coded that as red. And you can see that that note coincides with this red segment in here. That's the space on the left-hand clef. And that's where that would be on the musical staff. Let's look over here. Here's another C, all right? So that C in the musical note would be on this line down here below. But now let's go on to orange so you can see how this starts to work. Orange would be occupying the space directly below the next line. All right, the next line up is yellow. Here we go. See, this is a nice yellow. C, D, E, that's an E. So that E rests on that yellow line. Then we move on to this F. F is always going to be green. And green is this, you can see, space in between the two lines. So blue is on the light blue is on this line, dark blue is in this space, violet is on this line, and then we get back to red again. Red is in this space, yellow is on the line, orange is in the space. Okay, there we go. So you've got you see how the pattern goes. And of course, that pattern that I just showed you is only using the major chakras, is only using the large keys, the white keys, because, and now, I mean, I don't have colors in my palette right now to show you this graphically, but in between red and orange, that note, that would be a C sharp, this, or a D flat, this right here, this black key, that would be a slightly lighter, more orangey red. And the color in between orange and yellow would be a paler, more peachy orange. And so you can see how these are the subsets, the colors that are made as a secondary mixing of the primary note. So this will get into a more complex understanding of the flow of energy around the toroidal energy field as we get into part 2. And that is why I have this down here. This is a little teaser for what's coming up, that I will be showing you more about how energy actually flows around this torus and the significance of that. But right now we're still on the solar system. So I've done the chakras of your body over here, chakras of your body, and how that is related to music and the sense of musical harmony. And now let's talk about the sun and the solar system, because that has everything to do with harmonics and the way that matter vibrated, the pattern that matter vibrated into during the creation of the solar system. So here I'm bringing up this image right here so that, I'm sorry, I know I've got other stuff drawn on top of it. Again, it's not to scale, but I like this drawing because it shows the edge of the heliosphere. And you remember from previous lessons when I drew a picture of the heliosphere, I made it clear that the heliosphere is the giant toroidal donut that extends outward from the sun and encompasses pretty much all of the rest of the planets within its magnetic field, and that the heliosphere is essential for life in the inner planets to exist because it helps to keep out space debris. So this is a good drawing or a good diagram over here because it at least includes the information that the heliosphere exists. And although it is not perfectly to scale, because, for example, look at how far apart Earth and Mars are, and then look at how far apart, like Earth to Jupiter is compared to the sun. This should be much bigger, this space here. And this space here should also be much bigger, much bigger. But that's okay, because it does at least give you the idea that here's the sun, and then here is the edge of basically the sun's physical chakra. If I were using this as an analogy, I would say this is the edge of the sun's physical chakra. This edge of the heliosphere right here would be analogous to this edge, with the sun being at the center. And then what does that mean? That means that all the rest of these chakras in here are analogous to the planets of the solar system. That basically, when the solar system was created, and the solar system is like a macrocosmic version of you, just like when you were created. When you were created, there was a physical form, a physical body. Well, just like the sun. The sun has a physical body and a giant energy presence that stretches around it. And then within your energy presence, like within here, you then have smaller waves that are your chakras. And that's what we've got with, the chakras over here. The planets represent the smaller waves of energy that coalesced in certain orbital patterns. These are the orbital patterns that are dictated by the waves of harmonics. And harmonics, from the very beginning of this lesson that I was recording, is this diagram right here. Those places where energy naturally crosses over, and the patterns that it creates dictates the organization of materials on the material plane, or the organization of energy in the form of molecules on the material plane. So I'm going to stretch this concept into the next segment, but before I do, I'll be telling you that it has everything to do with the asteroid belt. Because right now I've given you the premise that your chakras are just like the solar system. They are both dictated by harmonics. The harmonics are patterns, and that according to those patterns, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, there should be a planet, but there is not one. That's like saying that we looked at your body and you should have a chakra there, but there is not one. What happened to it? Why is it that way? And what does it mean for a person to not be having a chakra, or to be missing a chakra? Well, this is part of the story of our solar system, like the story of a person's birth. And in part 2, I will get into the significance of that. So please tune in to part 2 for the significance of missing planet and the asteroid belt, and also a further explanation of the subtleties of energy as it flows throughout our chakras. Thank you very much.